After the successful reception of Star Wars Battlefront, Pandemic Studios was tasked to make a sequel to coincide with the DVD release of Revenge of the Sith. Only 1 year and 1 month after Battlefield's initial launch, its sequel would launch and reintroduce the world to what Star Wars games were meant to be. While the fundamentals of Battlefront formed the foundation for Battlefront 2, there are plenty of differences between the two, some for the better and some for the worse. For example, the classes established in the original return, however, each faction has a new class, and the classes that existed have some minor modifications. There has been changes to the numbers of items that the classes hold. This is in an effort to balance the classes, but this has some oversights partially overcome by the improved level design. Another thing that Battlefront 2 improves on is the visuals, at least on the PC. If you were to pick up the PlayStation 2 version, I wouldn't blame you if you thought that this game looked like ass. However, there are more graphical issues here than the original. Other than those issues, the environments, units, and weapons have had a fresh lick of paint. There are some class redesigns, including designs that can vary depending on the map, but the real highlights are those shown in the maps that are closest to those available in the original. While none of the maps are one for one, Naboo, Hoth, Endor, and Kamino have similar maps to the original while showing notable visual improvements. Audio quality is largely the same as the first game, music is good but not here for copyright reasons, voices are decent, and they fixed the lack of female vocal commands I complained about in the previous game. However, oddly enough, they did get Tamara Morrison to reprise his clone role for the campaign, but they neglected to have him as the command voices, as they're done by someone else. There also has been changes to the gameplay. These changes include new modes such as Hero, which is essentially team deathmatch with Star Wars characters, Hunt, which is essentially team deathmatch where you typically play as a sniper, faced off against various planet native creatures such as Wampas or Gungans. Then we also have Assault, which added the loved space combat, and lastly Conquest returns from the original to round out the modes. Units have also been rebalanced and are much more effective against vehicles due to thermal detonators pulling off double duty. Battles also seem to go faster too. This is likely due to the overall damage increases and other additional boosts caused by unit abilities or earned in battle. AI seems to have been improved and generally have more realistic responses. However, difficulty seems to be a little easier, excluding space battles and the later stages of the campaign. Notable additions to gameplay are space combat and being able to play as the hero. Space combat is okay, but I don't think it's quite as good as people remember. However, playing as the hero is still pretty cool. Speaking of the campaign without spoiling it, it entails a member of the 501st retelling various events covering from the beginning of the Clone Wars to the Empire Strikes Back. This leads to a fairly unique perspective that hasn't really been replicated since. There are some awesome segments from the films here, but overall I'd say that the details of the story leave some things to be desired. Galactic Conquest returns and acts like more of a secondary story. There is a campaign for each faction, and this time the abilities that were tied to planetary bonuses are bought through points that you earn from fighting battles. You also have to unlock classes in Galactic Conquest that they do start you off with the basic trooper and a pilot. Once again, Battlefront 2 is a proponent of its age. This means that it isn't very accessible. They have added the ability to subtitle the Move Me segments, however this doesn't seem to apply to the cutscenes when there's narrative, and unfortunately there's no other way to change the in-game language either. There are 2 difficulty options, but I believe that this game is easier than the original. There are also customization options for the different modes in instant action that can adjust things such as match length and number of AI on the respective teams. And of course, you can remap buttons, however they did cut controller support, which limits accessibility to some users. Battlefront 2 isn't very convenient despite being available for Steam, GOG, and the EA launcher. It's also available physically for the PlayStation 2, the PSP, and the original Xbox. However, it doesn't seem like it's available to purchase on the EA launcher, and it's only available through EA Access. I can't say I came across any bugs, but the game did hard crash twice when I left it. There are also AMD card exclusive visual problems that can be fixed by downloading the appropriate DLL. However, I did manage to find 2 or 3 instances where objects were slightly above the ground, and of course, the wider field of view that's available in the game does cause clipping with some of the guns. While online is functional, most of the servers are dead, and even when things were steadier, my brothers and I had trouble maintaining connections to the servers for longer than a match or 2. It's hard to say that Battlefront 2's experience has aged particularly well, but then again, I'm not entirely sure if it was all that good to begin with. The Conquest mode does feel better overall. The rebalancing does improve the overall feel, despite its a little overzealous loss of the AI awareness at close ranges. However, the space combat and tank controls are terrible. Even after you adjust it to the way you like it, it still doesn't feel great, and the space battles do seem to drag. It's hard to say where Star Wars Battlefront 2 falls in my rating system. I think that despite its flaws, it is objectively better than the original, at least in the gameplay sense, under ideal circumstances. However, I don't have the same rose-tinted glasses for this game as I do for the original. This makes the flaws far more noticeable, and even with the improvements, I often find the original more fun, though to be fair, I still only really play a few maps on the original. I think that the problems with this game lands it a meh. To be honest, the original Battlefront probably deserves to be placed here too, but this game does have more notable flaws, despite also improving things, likely earning it a lower score either way. I think that this game is better than an avoid, thus earning it a meh.